Alrighty, hello every folks, and good morning. Welcome to a quick discussion on something that I thought I had made kind of clear in the previous videos, but hey, whatever, I ramble. Let's try to get to the point a little quicker this time, shall we? So specifically, you cannot cut what wasn't originally there. And basically what I'm trying to get at here is that when it comes to the whole War of the Lions controversy, whatever else, essentially what we're seeing from the Final Fantasy Tic Tacs remake here is that we're essentially seeing them going and living their best, Resident Evil 4 permadeath randomizer life and going back to 1998. Effectively, they're going back to the PS1 version and basically rebuilding from there. And obviously the question would be, why exactly would they do that? Why would they go out of their way to go revisit a version of the game from forever ago, rather than going to the quote-unquote most up-to-date version? And the thing is, War of the Lions, despite technically adding things, but, the old golden words, they added content! But what does that actually mean? Like, how much of it was actually worth going through? And for that matter, essentially what was lost in the process? Because the thing is, it was not a clean transition. I want you to pay attention to the music in the background. Do you hear how it sounds like the instruments are in a closed room, like just... It feels like the instruments are potentially being played off of a synthetic keyboard in like somebody's bedroom or something. That's sort of in the closet feel to the music. Do you see how slow this potential firing animation is? A lot of things are like this. How long it took to set up Tailwind earlier, how the lighting effect sounds like an EKG machine. Okay, now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's, well, and also the fact that you can use spells as much as you'd like. Oh god, that crispy slowness on that animation. You gotta tolerate it. Anyway, so, I also want to point out that you can cast spells as much as you like, and you will never see a call-out in this version, with very, very few exceptions, because there were many details that were simply either forgotten about or scrubbed away in this version. So, to that end, let's go back to the PS1 version here and discuss this a little bit. Because the PS1 version was not like this. And the reason that they would go back to the PS1 version as opposed to the PSP version, PSP stuff is a pain in the ass for anyone to work on, okay? It's got its own proprietary resolution that's like a mega widescreen type situation. A lot of the ports really don't have stuff that can be screwed around with necessarily. Basically, if stuff got made for PSP, there was something funky to put it there in the first place. It is not going to be the ideal starting point for anything. In fact, as much as I joke about how much I'd love to see the Armored Core games from the PSP getting, a full-on port or something, realistically, they'll probably just go back to the original PS2 version and start again in that situation too. Because, quite frankly, again, PSP stuff tends to be very PSP. It tends to be prepared for the PSP, expecting to go on a PSP, and everything else related to a PSP. It lives and breathes in the little console in your pants. And so, as a result, it's not very necessarily easy to go back to. PS1 stuff, on the other hand, holy shit, this is a absolute just hotspot for modding for a reason, because all of it is available. There's all kinds of tricks that have been figured out to mess around with things, and when it comes to this PS1 version, it did not have issues with the sound getting horribly compromised. It didn't have issues with sounds going and overlapping on top of each other. Like the mobile version, it didn't have weird menu lag. And when it comes to the music, just listen to the music the entire time, how it sounds like you're sitting there in the opera house. Which, granted, I know not many people here have visited an opera house, but still, imagine that you did. But just imagine that you're on a stage and you can hear the echoes in the background, that you can hear the additional layers to the music. When somebody gets knocked out, instead of like a "arr" kind of sound, it's somebody actually sounding like they're getting their dang, arm ripped off. It's great. It's wonderful. It's brutal. It's, the way that it should be. This game has always been a mix, just like a beautiful mix of just essentially tenacity, of just sudden bursts of violence, with just the beauty of the sort of opera playing around in the background. And so listen to the music here. There's that extra little tinge on the back of every sound, extra layers to the music. Every one of these animations are crisp and punchy and to the point. And you might be saying, wait a minute, but what about my War of the Lions content? I need my capital C word. I need this thing in my mouth right now. And the thing is, again, we're seeing them go back and revisit stuff. We already know that the original script is being used, is essentially being used for the most part, for the for the sort of classic version there. The reason for that is apparently because Mitsuno just really liked that version and wanted it and preferred it to the original PS1 English translation. But the thing is, they're revisiting the PS1 version, and this essentially gives them the option to go and retool stuff from Where the Lines as they would like to see fit. Is it likely we'll see absolutely everything from there? Realistically, I would expect that most of that stuff, if not all of it, would be revisited. Look how much faster that animation is. Look how much it doesn't slow the game down. Look when we go and fire off this thing right here, how it sounds like frickin' lightning. It's just great. It's great when the sound effects work right. So we'll go ahead and do one of those. We'll go ahead and have you go up here. If you use something like a potion, it doesn't try to fast forward the game, and it doesn't lag the game either in order to go and use this thing. It just simply is used at its original speed because this is where it came from. And frankly, being able to play this smoothly, having everything played this nicely, is far preferable to a few cutscenes, in my opinion. Now, we've already seen that they're planning on redoing some of the cutscenes. Now, again, we don't have exact confirmations of every single cutscene in the game or anything else. We've gotten barely any information so far, but as far as I can tell, it seems like they're going to be taking those same cutscenes and essentially like using that style when it makes sense and going for the other stuff when it doesn't. Again, remember that when it comes to the actual like action in every one of these scenes, generally speaking, a lot more stuff can be seen when you're seeing the in-game cutscenes. And when the sound effects are actually working right, they're a lot more punchy. So again, as you can tell, all the sound effects are sounding nicer, the music is sounding nicer, the gameplay flows better. There are no weird compromises because those compromises haven't been added to the game yet. For those unfamiliar, Borderlands was made by a different team, and apparently part of the weird situation that led to them being, well, as compromised as they were there, was because they didn't have access to some of the tools or something for messing with that version and converting it to PSP. Apparently for the sound, it was some kind of compression thing. Honestly, I don't know the exact details on exactly what affected what. The point is, something in the dev cycle just kind of caused it to get rushed out the door when it wasn't quite done yet. It was a less than ideal development for one reason or another. And, well, frankly, while they did add a few bits and pieces in terms of those cutscenes, having the original writers at the helm means that they can make those cutscenes flow a decent bit better. I mean, there have been jokes even in the comments of the last few videos for even bringing up the timing on the whole thing, saying that he must have been using the time travel feature from Tactics Ogre. Effectively, a situation where it's really weird how Delete is just basically just traveling around doing whatever the hell he wants, wherever he wants, regardless of whether or not he needs a boat to get there. We've got scenes that feel like they came out of the Tactics Advance or Advance 2 titles, and it's just, there's so much more stuff that could potentially be done there. And for example, the enhanced version, I would expect to see stuff like archers potentially being a decent bit more interesting. I would expect to see stuff like if the Onion Knight comes by, probably being tied to, the away missions or something. If we're seeing things like, let's say, the cutscenes, I would expect there to be just better use cases for it, where the action scenes, again, are going to be in-game assets and everything else makes more sense in an actual movie format. The action scenes really did not convey well, in my personal opinion, in those scenes there, As far as guest characters go, who knows? We'd probably get completely different ones. Remember that Luso was originally in there because Borderlands came out at the same time that Tactics A2 did, and frankly, nobody frickin' knows who that is at this point. So I would not expect to see him there, but if we see, protagonists from like 14 or 16, or anyone else that team has worked on, it would be awesome. I saw one meme flying around on Reddit of, just due to some weirdness over how, Twitter is called X now, which still feels like vomit to say, but there was a mistake over some folks assuming that there were going to be Final Fantasy X characters, and it was just saying, it would be hilarious to see your protagonist replaced with like Kamari or something. Like everyone's just going and like ranting about all these different political opinions. He's like, yes, moving on, just walks away, like doesn't know what to say. He's just disinterested. Anyway. Whatever. Point is though that this is the only version that we've ever seen that has the original call-outs for spells and things like that. A lot of this, a lot of the call-outs are something that they really only kept in some situations. But for example, when Tactics Ogre Reborn got its stuff, we still saw the callouts from the PSP and PS1 versions. Sure, a lot of them were corny and they didn't give them voice acting, but they were there, and so, like, War of the Lions took all of those out. Some of them are needlessly edgy and hilarious, and I find it just really amusing. So we already know that they are there, because we already saw that Orlando was going and doing them. And again, there was a meme during one of the streams recently over a misunderstanding over one of the lines, which was for, like, Judgment Blade, I think it was. It was like Heaven's wish to destroy all minds, except they misunderstood it and it was destroy all mimes. But either way, it just adds that much more flavor. It's that much more intensity to the whole thing, you know? Anyway, so that was just kind of my whole 2 cents on this whole thing. I'm hoping that makes a bit more sense. You know, it's one of these cases where I'm pretty positive that we're basically going to see all of the good stuff in War of the Lions without any of the negatives. When it comes to things like the multiplayer, while I wouldn't expect that there would be a full-blown multiplayer mode, given that it was there, given that people liked it, they are aiming to make this sort of definitive version this time around. So I would expect that probably would be there. We already, again, no voice acting and all that's in there. As far as the story changes, we have no information on that, but I would expect that, again, we're probably going to see War of the Lions, like the War of the Lions content thrown in there, but improved in various ways that hopefully fit the tone a decent better than Wodel did. Because, look, as funny of a joke as it is to see Ramza talking about how he drinks milk, like, that's such a weird thing, you know? Because that's a farmer thing. Like, that's... When it comes to who's drinking what, okay? If they were going for a, hey, look, he's like a clean-cut dude, that would be like a Delita thing. Like, if Delita was talking about how he was going and drinking milk, okay, that makes sense. The thing is, in our modern context, the reason that it's there is because it's somebody that's a milk drinker is meant to be a bit of a wuss, right? It's kind of a more modern joke. Now, the thing is, people drank liquor back in the day, not necessarily because they wanted to get drunk all the time, but because it was effectively a way for them to drink purified water before water purification was a widespread thing. Meaning that if somebody was just drinking various drinks or what have you, they probably just didn't have too much other ways to have access to clean water. It was, kind of a stopgap thing. Sure, the actual drinking thing was part of it, but still. Anyways, that being said, though, as far as the whole milk drinking thing, that would seemingly be more of like a peasanty kind of thing. Like, you go get your milk from your cow or whatever else. I'm sure there might be stuff I'm missing there, but that one in particular always just seemed really strange. And just like, we gotta make sure that it's like the war crimes and stuff like that are perfectly okay. He's nuking people on a daily basis, but we wouldn't want to take it too far and say that he drinks. God forbid this person in medieval times was drinking. How dare they have beer? Like, as a bit of an example, the country where I was from originally, Lithuania, they have this drink called Gira. Basically, it's a combination of what's basically rotting burnt bread and stuff that you use to make bread, along with sugar. And it basically is technically alcoholic. Like, if you're wondering why people weren't just hammered out of their minds all the time, like, this drink, for example, is technically alcoholic, and if you wait long enough, it ferments into something alcoholic. But if you just drink it as it is before that period, it's basically like root beer. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it if you've never tried it and just expecting something perfectly amazing. It is kind of an acquired taste, but yeah, stuff's pretty darn good in my opinion. Anyway. So, with that all being said, I hope that helps explain a few things. I gotta get going, so y'all have yourselves a good one. Thank you for stopping by, and I feel like I'm gonna immediately remember something else that I forgot, and I don't want to restart this again. I mean, we did discuss the whole callouts thing. I don't know. There probably will be something I forgot. Oh well. Y'all have yourselves a good one. Take care, and I'll see you later. Bye.